Thank you, Alan. Thank you, C3, for having me. Just want to say, whoever made the agenda made me follow general heighten. Wow. You got Master Sergeant and Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. That's like 9 million rungs above me. But honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, and what I kind of want to talk to you about. You have folks like General Heighten who are these very great strategic thinkers. Their brains move in ways that I can't comprehend. I am an NCO. My job is to take commander's intent and execute. That's essentially it. Guru, on the other hand, was not a formal requirement. It was not a J-Rock requirement. It wasn't greenlit in a conference room at the Pentagon. Guru was me growing up in the intelligence community and being extraordinarily frustrated with the lack of technology available to me, the lack of data discoverability, and I didn't see anybody fixing that. So I have a fantastic detachment commander who told me, you have YCJDT authority. You can just do things. It's not official, but he made the mistake of kind of saying, go forth and do what you can. I took that quite literally and partnered with C3 to bring Guru to the intelligence community. So Guru is what happens when an obnoxiously stubborn senior NCO gets their hand on the C3 platform. That's what I'm going to show you today. I'm not going to read these stats. You can read them yourselves, but I do want to touch on what these stats mean and what's underneath them. Each one of those represents a fight that I had over the last 3 years, getting access to data source providers, their APIs, trying to convince them that, hey, I'm not gonna break your system. I'm not gonna cause a data spill. But the number on there that really, to this day, still keeps me up, that number on the bottom right, 81%. 81% of our currently 1,000 users, wish we were a lot more than that. Talk to you after this about that, but 81%, so 810 users say that they found net new insights that they wouldn't have been able to find without Guru. That's terrifying. Like, that is, pardon my NCO speak, but that is fucking unsat. That should not be the case, right? Like, we go to war with China, we're arguably at war with Iran right now. That's, no kidding, potentially another 9/11 event. We don't want that. We have the data, we spend an exorbitant amount of money, time, effort, manpower getting that data, but half the time it's never even touched. So that's what we're trying to fix with Guru. Back up about 3 years ago, these 8 core tenets, what I call them, the 8 core tenets of Guru. This is what I brought to industry as my requirements, very informal. Did kind of a market survey of the offerers out there. C3 was really the only one that seemed to get it when I talked to them. Almost everybody else saying, yeah, we can take all these data sources, we can vectorize them, you can set up, cron jobs to schedule the scraping of all these data sources, and not what I was looking for at all. That when you're talking about the intelligence community, you're talking about hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of different siloed data sources. I am not going out and scraping all those data sources I also don't want to be a data provider because that comes with all kinds of headaches. C3 understood from the very beginning that we needed a new architecture. Not an architecture that would impress engineers, but an architecture that would survive the bureaucracy of the federal government, which is a lot harder to do than impress engineers. So this is what Guru has been and is currently built on top of, right? A couple caveats to this, right? Deterministic responses. You'll never get fully deterministic responses from a probabilistic model. However, generally speaking, you ask the same question, you will get not the same exact answer, but the same gist, right? The same overall content. Another great thing about the platform that you've heard, right? Model agnostic, right? Of course, there's little things that you'll have to do from a data science perspective. Some of these models like XML tags, some of them don't. That's honestly kind of fun for me to do, so not a big deal. When a certain frontier lab gets in a tizzy with the federal government and I can no longer use my favorite model. Still pretty butthurt, but we'll move on. So one of the things that I think is very unique about Guru, comparatively speaking to a lot of the other AI platforms, applications that you'll see at any given conference, the breadth of users that we serve at all the various levels, they all have the same interface. The same application, same fairly simplistic interface. The vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs might ask, hey, who's likely to be the next Ayatollah, and where can we find him? J2 at some combatant command might be asking, what's the IADS posture of this certain Middle Eastern country, and where are the gaps, and how do I fly lots of airplanes in and conduct seed operations? And then you got the tactical ground pounders. Let's say, I need to find bad guy. Where do I kill him? All the same interface, completely different workflows that fire off as soon as that question's asked. But a common and ubiquitous interface. Again, backing up, this is what the architecture of Guru looked like when I first started it, right? It was what I would call duct tape and determination, right? Unfortunately, on the networks that I operate on, we didn't get access to some of the frontier models that a lot of you have enjoyed for a very long time, up until astonishingly recently, and now they're taking away one of them. So we had to do our best with what we had available, and a lot of that was open source, not so great models. So we kind of built the intelligence around the models in Guru version 1 and version 2. Even with that duct tape and determination, it crushed, right? The feedback that we got was, oh my God, how do we keep doing this? Is this program going to survive? I hope so. But kind of understood at that point that that wasn't the ceiling. That was the very bottom of the floor. And since then, we've done some pretty cool stuff. This is what it used to look like from the user's perspective. Essentially, a ton of parallel asynchronous calls to various data sources that then all fuse together, regardless of if that data source was relevant to the user's question, we still tried it because, again, couldn't really get the models to do exactly what we wanted them to do. Pivoting a little bit, traceability, right? Citations. This is something a lot of people talk about. I think something that people don't necessarily talk about, right? The auditability, being able to sanity check the system, that's great and that is required for sure. But something that people don't talk about is the citations themselves and the traceability. In and of itself is a discovery tool. You would be astonished at how many data sources, systems are on the high side that 90%, sorry, I say high side. High side means the classified network that I work on. I speak in cryptonyms sometimes. There are hundreds, thousands of data sources that 95% of people working in that area don't even know exist. And it's not like there's a Google on our networks. If you don't know exactly where to go, you ain't finding it. And we spend a lot of money, right, getting that really exquisite niche collection, and that data just dies on the floor. So that is, I think, why our analysts actually really love the traceability. I think it's less about sanity checking the model and more about it kind of being a learning experience for them. So they know where to go the next time they have something similar. So I talked about this, right? Guru phase 1 and phase 2. I call it OG agentic, right? Agentic before agentic was cool. It was agentic in the sense that there were multiple agents that all did different things, but there was no real, agent-to-agent communication. There was no planning. It was just brute force and a lot of mad data providers emailing me, telling me to stop hammering their APIs. But in that version 1 and version 2, we did learn a lot, and we built a lot of cool stuff. Source credibility validation, corroboration, right? So a lot of times you'll get conflicting information. The model isn't necessarily the best judge of which one is correct and which one is not. So we just said, yes, surface both of them and then just flag that there's contradictory information. That happens scarily a lot more than you would think in high confidence intelligence reporting. Now, recently, I got my hands on the newer version of the C3 generative AI base app. And this is what that looks like. You have a dynamic planner, and then a bunch of sub-agents, models, tools below it to kind of satisfy really any question that you may have that your enterprise data can answer. This is what that looks like in my world. So this is Guru's Deep Fusion agent. And this just hit the streets, 4 months ago-ish. And the response from the community has been astounding. It will go out and sequentially query multiple data sources, get data from one, use that to query another. This sounds very vague, and there's a reason for that, right? I can't really discuss much of what exactly it does in an open setting, but rest assured we are getting some tremendous, tremendous feedback. And just to hammer something home, like this is not a demo, this is not a pilot. Right now, this is being used in real-world operations, and you can imagine the stuff going on right now, this is being used for that heavily. And it's very cool, and I'm kind of can't wait to get back there to see what people are hitting it with. This is some old feedback. Obviously, I can't share some of the more spicy feedback that we've gotten from our users. I call all of our users Guruvians because I'm a weirdo. I sign off a lot of my emails to our users with long live Guruvia. But these aren't marketing lines, right? Like these are, I have never in my career gotten or heard of any government tool where users are regularly emailing the program manager, the lead, saying, thank you, this is incredible. It never happens, right? We're all, us government folk, we're not super outgoing like that. But I get these emails every single day. So what's next? There's a lot of cool stuff coming. Steven talked about C3 code, right? The next really big thing is integrating that into Guru so that users can essentially vibe code their own data source integration, right? So I can only do so much at a time. And I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do it. Space Force might want me to go, I don't know, do some leadership stuff. Poor choice, but I guess I'll have to do it. But that kind of democratizes the improvement of the application. Analyst A needs he really uses this data source that nobody's ever heard of. He goes into Guru, he vibe codes an agent that integrates with that data source. Now the entire community has that integration as part of the Guru baseline. More data sources, more users, more agents. And I think this is kind of inevitable. There's a few detractors in the community. However, there will always be those. General Hyten, one time I heard you say that at the time, DOD, it wasn't DOW yet, the DOD needs to get out of our own way with regard to AI and AI development. This is what happens when we actually do. Thank you all. Thank you, C3, for having me, and enjoy the rest of the conference.